put my paper to my pen for every woman and man who's had a fist put to their head while their child lays crying in bed. I put my heart into this poem for every victim of domestic violence who seems to think that their voice has been silenced. Well, I am your voice. And you now have a choice to stand up beside me or continue to back down. I said, I am your voice. And until we stand up as one and put our foot down, this ring of domestic violence is going to keep going around. Confusing love with black and blue, eyes so swollen the day that night, praying is all that she can do. She let you hit her and she stayed on her knees at night in the bathroom as she prayed, asking God to send her some relief. This can't be life because all she's doing is breathing in grief. 2 kids taken and 1 deceased. She's not making love to a man, but she having sex with a beast. And his ignorance is only helping her inner beauty decrease. Never knowing that her mind developed her grasp and that her body is her temple. And although her face came easily to create dimples, that allowing someone else to make you frown should never be so simple. I let every breath flow from my body for every child that's being touched by a man thinking that they're playing pretend and their mother sits back and not lends a hand. Seeing the innocence being taken through her baby's eyes, not doing anything because she's too desensitized, not realizing she's being abused because it's only words. He's not shooting you with bullets, but he's killing you with words, and it's piercing your soul, leaving you broken and cold. He's not hitting you with a closed fist, but he's striking you with an open mouth, using his verbal ability to make you feel like his enemy, and you wondering how you can love so hard with a heart so weak. Being abused emotionally, verbally, and financially, he don't want you to think. And you making excuses because you want to be loved. But the funny thing is, baby girl, you already was. We're losing our women to senseless acts of violence. We're losing our women because we're staying in silence. Our men are being raised to think it's okay to hit a woman. Our women are being raised to think it's okay to be hit by a man. Within each one of us is where the healing begins. I stand here before you with my wounds wide open. I stand here before you because I too once was broken. I stand here before you as a woman revealed. Today, I stand here to show my scars so that others know that they may heal.
Now, how do I follow that?
Hello, thank you all for coming out today. The My Scars Chat will be talking about domestic violence. A very sensitive topic and something that's very near and dear to my heart. Right now, I'm gonna allow the panelists, I'm gonna have the panelists introduce themselves to you all so you guys can get an idea of who will be sharing with you on this afternoon.
Okay. Hello, I am Assemblywoman Dina Neal. I represent District 7. We're in it. And so I am here because I guess I felt I had something powerful to say. I'm the first African-American female to ever be elected into the state assembly. And as far as women of color voices being heard and understood and the depth of our issues in the legislature, you know, it's been a constant push between the Latino female body and between me trying to bring this issue up, and we're able to pass some legislation that impacted domestic violence this past session.
I'm Nancy Hunterton. I'm a therapist, a marriage and family therapist in private practice, and I work a lot supervising people. I was in jail as a therapist for 7 years, working on domestic violence, also at Bridge Counseling, and I was saying, I have the odd experience now of often getting the under the news, out of the limelight, prominent families where domestic violence arises. And I'm hoping that I can maybe talk about a little bit different angle on domestic violence today, although I truly, truly endorse what we just heard and what I know we're going to hear.
Thank you. My name is Rebecca Pineda. First of all, what a police. For putting this event together. We need more victim advocates. Those are the usual victim advocates. We are the leading advocates, and we might retire or die. One day, we're not going to be here. So it's, young ladies such as Rhachelle that's going to keep the movement of the domestic violence. And, I feel honored and humbled to be here today attending this event. My name is Rebecca Ferreira. I'm the founder of Safe Faith United. Safe Faith United is a faith-based domestic violence organization that I was founded back in 2008. Many people ask me why you become the founder of a domestic violence. Well, I was a survivor myself. I endured domestic abuse for 7 years. And I decided to, better myself so I can better the life of other women. And it's not easy. That's why I congratulate Rhachelle on putting this event together, because it's not easy. There is a lot of apathy towards the community against the movement. And there are not too many people that have been supportive of domestic violence organizations such as Safe Faith United and other organizations. So I'm here, to answer all your questions, or at least a few of them, because I don't have all the answers. But I have 10 years experience working as a victim advocate. Initially, I started with the police department. I worked there almost 5 years. And I'm a criminal justice major. And I've been working with this organization for 5 years. We've been all over the news with the worst cases of domestic violence here in Nevada. If you can search Safe Faith United, you're going to find over 70 hits, just one television channel. That is the awareness that we have brought here in Nevada about domestic violence. And this year we saw the numbers are going down, but we cannot, just say, well, the number went down, but, there is a lot of work to do. And I, compromised myself today to work with Rhachelle so we can, get the movement going and leading her into be the next generation gap of victim advocates. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Mosley. I have the honor of working in politics here, looking for women to run for office and helping them to get there. Been in Nevada for about 5 years. I had the honor of coming here to work on the Obama campaign, and I decided to stay because I liked it so much. I am here today because, one, I have experienced domestic violence in my former marriage. Domestic violence comes in various forms. My husband never hit me until the end. And I went to jail. I was arrested for defending myself against my husband. Spent a couple of days in jail. Luckily, the district attorney in my case elected not to file charges. That's one thing I'm passionate about, bringing more awareness to women and the criminalization of so-called victims. I reject the term of victim. I have experienced domestic violence. I don't consider myself a victim of anything. But one, bringing awareness to the criminalization of women or men who have experienced domestic violence, and two, men. So I'm looking out at the audience and I'm very excited to see men here, because you play an integral part in the elimination of domestic violence. Men are 90% of the time perpetrators, but you're also 10% of the times experiencing it yourself. And bringing awareness to the shame that men sometimes feel about either one, being a perpetrator, or two, experiencing domestic violence is very important to me. So I think we just need to open up the dialogue further about men and your role that you play in the elimination of domestic violence. I think when we all think of domestic violence, we think of a woman being beaten, or we think of children being beaten, but there's such a broader definition of domestic violence, and I hope that today we can touch on some of those other important topics.
Hi, my name is Darren Thames. I work for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society for the Nevada chapter. I'm the manager of programs and services for all of Nevada. The question is, what is an MS guy doing here for DV? Well, previous to that, I was in child welfare for 12 years. I was the case manager, promoted to investigator, promoted to supervisor. And so I dealt with domestic violence a whole lot as it relates to the impact on children and how it impacts children and family. So today I'm just going to talk about, if any questions, and talk about how it impacts our children, what are some of the long-term effects that have on our children, and how they move from being children to adults and still carry that same pain, that same hurt, and thinking that that same behavior is the right kind of behavior of how to treat someone. And so, anything else? Proceed. Thank you.
turn the camera on yourself.
Yeah, right, yeah. Turn it off.
Changing to my other role, Clark Clint. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rodney Smith. I'm the publisher of Our Own Voices magazine. Our Own Voices magazine is a media platform where all of our voices can be heard. And in order for us to be heard, we have to speak up. So I wanted to give our community and other communities an opportunity to learn about themselves and for other cultural groups to learn about us. I thought that it was so vital for men to be represented on a panel discussion because oftentimes, let's be honest, men don't always listen to you ladies. But we do have a tendency to listen to other men. And I've known Rebecca Ferreira for a number of years. I've seen the impact that she's been able to make in the community with her efforts. After meeting with Rhachelle and seeing her passion for this, then I could not help but offer whatever I have to help continue the discussion, because we have to have a dialogue. You know, you have to think it, you have to speak it, and then we can do it. So we're into the speaking today to lead to the doing. And just as we talked about the 10% of men who are, well, we don't like to use the word victim, but they have experienced domestic violence. Well, those numbers are growing. Look at the unemployment situation today. And there's another threat to domestic violence. I'm a veteran, but I'm also a veteran of combat. And I know the stresses that those people have because I'm one of them and I experience it. And I know how easy it can be to go from 0 to 100. And our community needs to be educated on what it's going to be like when some of those veterans, both male and female, come home, and how sometimes the stresses that they have leads to perpetuating domestic violence. And I believe domestic violence is a scourge, not only on the community that may be represented by the panel here, but really our entire city and our entire nation. So hopefully today will be an interactive event, not just with us here on the panel, but hopefully with you out there. And then finally, I'll say this. There's probably folks in this room right now who are experiencing domestic violence, whether they know it or not. And hopefully today will be an opportunity for those of you who are undergoing it and who don't know it to realize that you are. And for those of you who know that you're in a domestic violence situation, that there'll be an opportunity for you to feel empowered to take yourself out of that isolation that domestic violence folks often find themselves in, to realize that there are folks around you who can help you. And from the testimonies and stories of folks like Rebecca Ferreira and Rhachelle, that you all will feel empowered enough to reach out for the help that you need because it is available.
Thank you all. I hope you have gotten comfortable with our panelists because these are the people that will be answering some of your questions. That's why I wanted to break that ice so you know who you're talking to, so you feel comfortable with asking questions. 6.5 years ago, I moved to Las Vegas from California. I had my 3 oldest children, 1 on the way, and a suitcase. I was trying to leave everything behind me, not realizing that no matter how little of the physical baggage I was carrying, it was so much emotional baggage that I had basically been carrying of my own. Like one of the other panelists said, he hadn't hit me. He maybe had gotten physical once or twice, but his words had torn me down to a part where he didn't have to take my life. I was going to take my own. 6 months prior to me moving here, I had attempted suicide. I remember reaching into the cabinet and grabbing a bottle of pills and taking them one by one. I had lost the will to live anymore because I wanted to escape everything that I was experiencing and had gone through and how he had broken me down. I had just graduated college, 3-4 years prior. I was ready to take on the world, and here I am walking into a relationship at a time where I was kind of low. My parents had divorced, and so I let my guard down to someone that I shouldn't have let my guard down to because of what I had been going through, and lost myself in the relationship and almost lost my life. So I moved here to try to start all over, and I still found myself not dealing with everything that I had been going through. So I was emotionally broken and didn't realize it. But I started to see how it was affecting me in every single aspect of my life. Like you said, you might leave here today realizing that you've been in a situation all this time and didn't know. But then you lose yourself and you realize, wow, I'm putting some pieces back together that I didn't even realize were broken. I wrote my pieces became my book Sunday morning. I began writing and reflecting on the things that I had been through. I had to make sense of everything that had happened to me and how I had gotten to this point. And I began blogging at the same time. I didn't realize that from blogging, I was becoming someone else's voice that had lost theirs. And that's where I began signing my book after I released it, with I Show My Scars so that others know they can heal. It became more of a way of me letting people know that it's okay. We've all been through something. And if you can't speak of what you've been through, I'm going to share my story. And so hopefully I can encourage you and inspire you to share yours as well. So today we're here, and we're going to be talking about this sensitive topic, but a much needed conversation that needs to happen. And I think it's been long overdue. So about domestic violence. We've all shared a piece of us, and it all has taken on different forms. So I really want to make sure that everyone is clear on what domestic violence is. So when you hear the word domestic violence, what do you first think of?
Relationship. Abuse in a relationship.
What would someone else think?
Violence, maybe?
Violence? Okay.
The
Now,
physical aspect of it.
the physical, okay. See, we constantly hear about the physical aspect, but like me, I had went through emotional and verbal abuse that he didn't have to put a fist to me, but I was waiting for it, just hit me, you know what I mean? After you've been broken down, it's like, just hit me so I can leave. Maybe that'll get me out of here. But I was wanting to take my life. So I want us to deal with that. Let's talk about the different areas of domestic violence and abuse and what forms that it takes on, as far as emotional, verbal, sexual, financial, and the physical abuse.
Well, I guess I can only speak from the personal perspective of my sister. I would say that my sister experienced, and I had a best friend who at 16, but my sister experienced emotional and verbal abuse. She was in a relationship with a guy probably from 16 to 21, and similar to Rachel. She tried to take her life twice. He told her what to wear. He told her what to think. He cheated with other women and made her believe that the other women were only around because she wasn't good enough, and so she felt she was in constant competition. He tried to share her with other men. She fought my mother to try to stay in a relationship with him. When we tried to get her out of, well, it was really me, because my mom kind of made me her bodyguard, because I was super aggressive. And so I used to be around, and one time at a pool hall, I guess another girl was there, and she confronted him, and he slapped her in the pool hall. This was that pool hall on Bonanza back in the day. I don't even know if it's still there. And I remember her coming home, and she totally blamed herself. She literally got mad at me, because I was like, we getting ready to roll out. I know there was some broken glass in the parking lot. I know there was. That you could have used. I know it was. And she was like, I cannot believe that you, she was like, it was my fault. I should have never confronted him. I should have never gotten his face and told him what he was doing to me. Now this went on, even after that year, went on for another 3 years. And she stayed in that relationship. And the only thing that broke her out of that relationship was, I believe my mom got sick. And she then decided she would leave and go to Colorado. Like, it was weird. It was really weird. Like, we woke up one night, she took my mom's car, she was in Colorado. That's how she changed her life. But she still kept scars. Like, she didn't date, and every person that she dated after that became a controlling person. And for my best friend, she was 15, got emancipated, wanted to be married. At 16, she's Latino, We had been to school from first grade on up. And she thought this was love, and his way of controlling her was beating her behind every time she left. And she had 5 girls, back to back. And I think the only reason why she's not in that relationship is because he died. Because she stayed with him, and I would be her, I don't think I was codependent, because I was more like, you need to leave, you need to get out of there. But she was so in love with him, there was no logical reasoning that was associated with what she was doing, because what she felt was, he's the only person that's ever loved me. She was overweight. Every time we would go out, she was always picking up these people because she was the only child, so she was constantly lonely. So she chose people who supposedly filled the gap. She thought they filled her up, but really he was taking from her. And our relationship changed because I hated him, she loved him, I loved her, and I was combative to him. So our relationship broke apart when she was 21, when we both turned 21, and I've actually had no additional contact with her. I ran into her child when I visited juvenile justice, and her kid was in the room while talking to these young girls who got picked up for prostitution and burglary. And she said, you know my mother. And I said, who's your mother? And she said her name. And I said, I'll be hot dog. And this was her youngest girl that I was facing in juvenile on Pecos in Mojave. And I was sitting there saying to myself, what if I had stayed in her life? My parents pulled me out of that relationship because they felt she was going to drag me down. And I loved her, but I didn't love her enough to watch that pain, because it split us up, because there was a weird relationship that was happening where I was just like, me and her were being split apart because of him, because I wasn't going to tolerate her relationship. But she loved him beyond me. She loved him beyond her mother. Just like my sister, she fought her mother. And my sister fought my mom. All over this guy that they felt they wanted to hang on to like dear life. And it was crazy. And I think for me, it really made me think about how much we don't love ourselves and how we choose to extend and put other relationships with other people. And I started really trying to figure out, how do you heal people? How do you heal that, right? And the only thing I knew that transformed, and I don't know what's going on with my friend, but with my sister, the only thing that transformed her was God and moving. And my mom, and I just remember, and I had to tell her this story to like bring her full circle when she went to Colorado. My mom stripped the sheets off the bed and laid on the bed in the form of a cross. Because she didn't know if my sister was going to make it to Colorado. And the car literally stopped on her, and a hitchhiker picked her up. And it had to be because my mother was praying that she made it to Colorado. And he didn't kill her because she didn't know him. But I had to tell her, I said, you have to understand, I couldn't get her off the bed. She stripped it off and laid on there, and she prayed for 12 hours. And my sister, once she understood that, and my mom passed away, that's when she understood that maybe she ought to value herself before a man. And I know that drastic situations happen, but I watched those things occur. And I had no control over any of it. And it was weird. And that's all I can really say about that.
That's a fantastic segue into what I really want to talk about, the only thing that I hope I have to contribute to this. And that is that we don't understand love. And understanding domestic violence has everything to understand how we attach, about understanding how we attach to other people. When I worked in jail, I would go downstairs, it was when there was just the one tower, and I'd go downstairs and there would be 20 women standing in line who had been beaten up by the men I was working with upstairs, putting money on their books, and they'd say, "Oh, you're Miss Nancy," and blah, 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 and I'd say, "What are you doing?" And they'd say, "Oh, he loves me, he didn't mean to do that." And, you know, and I would originally dismiss that, but a lot of years ago, and over the years, I've learned to understand, we learn very early our style of love. And there are those people who run after their mommies and daddies or their big brothers or sisters or whatever, and they cling hard, and they won't let go. And there are those people who don't need anything, and there are those people who learn how to, you know, give and take. And the truth, we call that today in my field, we call that attachment theory. How we attach, how we connect, how we understand and recognize love has so much to do with what we'll tolerate. And the truth is, if the only parent who really loved us some of the time abused us the other part of the time, that's love. And so much of what I didn't understand for many years, I'd be working with women who come in with scars and open wounds and stuff. I'd say, "What the heck are you doing?" And they'd say to me, "Nancy, he loves me." And one of the things I learned was to give them permission to love that person, but get safe. And when I stopped being the mother, and I don't mean this reflective on you, when I stopped saying, "You have to hate that person is evil," when I started saying, "Okay, I got it, you love this person with all your heart," and it was sometimes a guy with a female who just almost addicted to that person. When I got seeing it with teenagers, when I got seeing this incredible love, then for me, I began to understand it differently and understand why people do the very last thing that makes sense. Why do people go back? I would bet every one of us has gone back to a friendship, a relationship, or whatever, where emotionally it didn't make sense. Somebody was abusive, dismissive, didn't have time for us, clung too hard, or whatever. And that is about very early how we learn to just feel loved. So a lot of what I'm working on in my own practice and with other therapists I'm working with is teaching people to really examine how they understand love. Not necessarily to hate someone. I mean, I don't think anybody who hurts someone else should be able to get close to them. But if they're already inside, we have to teach how to let go gently, how to understand there may have been some sweetness in there. And most of the time, when we talk about it in the cycles of violence and stuff, there is sweetness. Typically, that person who's the most abusive is the most loving and the most on point in understanding that soul at certain points. And they'll say, "He's my soulmate," or "She is," or whatever. And all I'm really saying, my point, I mean to go on too long, is the complexity of love, of affection, of attention starts when we're really little in somebody's arms. And it has everything to do with what we tolerate and what we experience later.
Thank you. Well, I would like to discuss domestic violence from an immigrant perspective. Many people ask themselves, why the victim stay with the abuser, because we try to find a logical excuse, if you will. But there are so many things that, immigrant women go through when they are victims of domestic violence. And not only talking for an immigrant